My name is Hallie Kane, and today I'm going to be presenting about the Cuban poet and philosopher by the name of Jose Marti. Before we start the presentation, I want to ask you what you are doing individually or as a society to help through your culture or country struggles. I think it's important for everyone to unify together as well as value differences to make society better and to honestly leave a lasting impression on your culture. Jose Marti is a great example of that. He became the symbol of Cuba's struggle for independence from Spain. Who was Jose Marti? I'm going to be talking about four of the most important points of his life that ultimately created his impression on who he is and how he helped this country. His early life, political ideologies, neologisms, and of course, his lasting and important legacy. His early life. He was born on January 28th in 1853 in Havana, Cuba, and from a very young age, he found ways to express himself through writing and poems. According to the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, he was a bright, eager student and a very talented artist. He even enrolled in a school for painters and sculptors during his teenage years, and he published his first Havana newspaper, La Patria Libre, at age 16. He was sent to jail for his political activities before he was deported to Spain in 1871, and there he published a political essay called El Presidio Politico en Cuba. Later, in 1874, he received a philosophy and law degree from the University of Saragossa. After his release, he traveled around Europe and he ultimately married a Cuban exile's daughter, Carmen Zayas Bazan. He then eventually moved to the US, and in 1881, he made New York City his main focus of political activities. But he continued to write about Latin American issues and never lost faith about where he came from. He gained a lot more recognition from newspaper columns for La Opinión Nacional of Caracas and for La Nación of Buenos Aires, Argentina. His political ideologies. Of course, he gets credit himself for his ideas, but he also came in contact with some philosophers, German philosopher Krauss, and in France, he met Victor Hugo. Both of their humanism and love for the poor made a lasting impression on Jose. While Jose was in exile and going through tough times, he never lost the faith of the inner goodness of man, and he never gave up. He didn't rely on only physical strength of man, but he also believed in spiritual powers. He did not desire war, but he believes that he was destined to organize. Neologisms. A neology is the use of a new word or an expression, and Jose, according to the Neologisms of Jose Marti by Canadian Association of Latin American and Caribbean Studies, he was a master of Spanish etymology, which also creates another point throughout his legacy. He created over 800 neologisms, including 350 nouns and adjectives and about 100 verbs. His neologisms aren't really well known, which means they have even more of a significance and more of an importance in his legacy. Onto his legacy. According to Jose Marti in the Cuban Revolution by Cuban Studies, he was killed with Spanish troops at Dos Rios Oriente province on May 19th in 1885. His goals for Cuba since he was 16 was about friendship, love, and justice and freedom. Not only did he have a lasting impression in Cuba, but he also did on the US, as we learn about him in schools as well. He also had a strong military legacy. In 1884, he had a military dictatorship, but that ultimately led to a break with Maximo Gomez and Antonio Maceo. He temporarily withdrew, but by 1892, he formed the Cuban Revolutionary Party in the US. Cubans considered Jose and still do consider him as the spirit of their national identity. He remains a very important symbol in the historical formation of the US and Latino identities. Cubans would search for sacred texts and keys of Jose to make sense of their own reality on why things were the way that they were. And Cubans kind of had Jose to guide them. Even though he was physically dead, his spiritual living, his spiritual soul helped guide them through tough times and through struggles. The first and second declarations of Havana, Cuba have ideas that come from Jose. And it's really important to notice and recognize him as a very important philosopher of the US and Cuba. Thank you for watching.